Hey all, my name's Kate. I'm a tarot card reader and astrologer based in New York. I run a website called heathens.nyc, and I recently was invited to do a talk on birth chart interpretation for an online class called Divination. And so I recorded a little bit of this Zoom class and I wanted to put it online because I thought it'd be useful uh, to a general audience. To interpret birth charts, I use a website called Astro.com. To the best of my knowledge, it's been around for over 20 years. It's one of the original players in the online astrology space, and it's a really useful tool. It gets very complicated, but if you're a beginner, it can be really great to just uh, get your feet wet, understanding the different symbols and elements and players in the game of doing your own interpretations. So I thought we'd just start with that. If you go here, go to My Astro and then stored Astro data. So I've been doing, just as a little background on me, I've been doing tarot and astrology for over 10 years. Um,
Nice.
yeah, I'm completely self-taught, although there's a huge astrological community online that I've participated in and done a lot of self-study. I've been reading birth charts for basically as long. So I'll give you just a quick overview. I'll use my chart as an example. So I clicked on my chart data, and then you can do a couple different things. You could go to chart drawing, or what I like to use is extended chart selection, and you have a bunch of different tools to be able to understand um, you to pull on different types of charts. And so I'll explain this really quickly, but the most basic one is just a natal chart.
Mhm.
Of course, they have so many different ways that you can adjust it. One of the most important kind of variables is something called a house system. I've used Placidus for as long as I can remember, but there's also equal and porphyry is another. Equal and porphyry are kind of like, and whole sign are the three, four that are, I would say, most used in a contemporary context. But we can go ahead and just use Placidus. Let's see, show the chart. And so something that I can just start by saying is when you're reading a chart, let me just ask you, have you ever seen a chart like this?
No.
Okay, so we're gonna put in your data in just a sec, but key things to consider is AC represents the rising sign, DC represents the descending line, and this is kind of the primary horizontal axis upon which the rest, kind of everything flows. So if you see these numbers right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 12, it shows you the um, different houses that the chart gets broken down into, and each numerical house corresponds to a different segment of one's life. So I'm happy to go through them, but just as an these are just the key pieces that I just want to point out before we kind of dig deeper.
Hmm.
So we have the ascendant. Okay, the next thing is we have the IC. This is basically in conjunction with the midheaven, which is the MC here. The midheaven is representative of the highest point of your chart. It's on the day of your birth. It's basically noon, which represents your career, your public standing in the world. The IC, by contrast, represents um, your sense of home and intimacy and what you're like in your deep most private moments. And so, as I'm sure you know, the ascendant represents the way that you're seen in the world. The contra to that is the way that you show up in one-to-one partnerships and relationships.
Hmm.
So yeah, just to reiterate, we have these 12 different houses, and then we have these 4 points: AC, DC, IC, and MC. Have you guys looked at the symbols for the different planets yet?
No.
Okay, so one thing that I can point out is so the sun sign is like this big circle with a little circle inside it. And so when you're looking at a chart like this, you can see that there's a symbol for every single sign on the outside. And for example, this represents Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn. So you would go in and you would say, like, where, if you wanted, if you're coming to this fresh, I would say, okay, I see this one's pretty easy. I see the moon is here in the 10th house in the sign of Aries. These are represented this way. Something that's also kind of helpful is that, at least in astro.com, the different sign elements are represented in like corresponding colors. So Leo is red, Aries is red, Sagittarius is red. Those are all fire planets or fire signs. The earth signs are in green, the air signs are in orange, and the everything else is in water is in blue. So if I was reading this for the first time, I would say, okay, so I see this this sign of the planet in Aries in the 10th. Cool. I would kind of note that, and I'd go on to the next, perhaps like obvious sign. This represents Jupiter in Virgo in the 3rd. Something else I'll note, just because it's I've looked at it so many times. When you have many, many planets in one area of life, it's 4 or more planets in a single house is called a stellium. A stellium is like a highly concentrated cluster of planets. They represent usually like a soul direction in this lifetime. Hi, so I know that was really quick. I just wanted to go over some of the basic elements of reading your own birth chart on astro.com. I highly encourage you to go online and create your own profile, enter your birth chart data, create one of these circle charts, and literally go through and try to figure out the different aspects of your chart. Look at the planets, look at what signs they fall in, and then look at the houses. One of the best teaching tools, or one of the best pieces of advice I can give for teaching yourself, is literally going through and trying to understand each of these discrete elements in their minutia, and then taking a step back and asking yourself, what is the larger story that's being told by all of these symbols? Something that you'll definitely see the more that you spend time with the myths is that there are these reverberations of stories. There's like stories that revolve around different images, different planets, different themes, and they show up at the house level, at the planet level, and then in correspondence between all the different elements. Anyway, I hope this was helpful to you, and we'll talk soon.